Miami is one of the most beautiful places in the U.S. And a lot of that beauty has to do with the simple fact that we're surrounded by water. A whole lot of water. But our numerous waterways, including the famed Biscayne Bay, are under dire threat from a number of man-made challenges. From pollution to ecosystem-crushing algae blooms to sea level rise and a nuclear power plant that could end up being swallowed by the sea, there's a lot at stake. But there are also people trying to make a difference out there. Today, we'll introduce you to the woman charged with defending Miami's water at all costs. Rachel Silverstein has loved the ocean since she first learned to scuba dive at age 14. That love drove her from her hometown of San Diego to New York for college and Miami for graduate school 10 years ago. For the past 4 years, she served as the Waterkeeper and Executive Director for Miami Waterkeeper.
We focus primarily on clean water and water pollution issues, habitat protection issues, which for us is a lot of coral reef, seagrass, mangrove, wetland work, and then finally sea level rise resiliency.
Silverstein has helped grow the organization to a team of 5 people. She used to be the only one in the office. They advocate for ecological protections and smart public policy through advocacy and scientific research. They also sue polluters, and they threaten people who are trashing Miami's waters with lawsuits. They do that a lot.
We have an amazing legal team. We have 2 lawyers on staff now, which is fantastic, and then we also have lawyers in the community who, for the most part, have their own practices at firms, but who care deeply about environmental issues. Most of them grew up here diving and swimming in Biscayne Bay, and they've seen it change. They've seen a lot of the marine life disappear. They've seen the seagrasses die off. And so they devote a lot of their time to helping us and to supporting our work.
In 2014, Miami Waterkeeper sued Miami-Dade County to protect coral reefs that were impacted by the Port Miami dredging project. The county settled with Miami Waterkeeper and paid over $400,000 to relocate the corals to a University of Miami lab. Rachel clearly loves her adopted home of Miami and feels that Biscayne Bay is the lifeblood of our community.
The Biscayne Bay is a shallow tropical lagoon that spans from Hollow River all the way up in the northern end of the bay down to Card Sound in the southern end of the bay and the southern end of Miami-Dade County, right before it turns into Monroe County. And Miami as a community is really built around the shores of the bay. And we sort of think of it as the jewel in our backyard, and it's everyone's backyard in Miami, and that we're here because of the bay.
Rachel's passion and drive to save Miami's waters is infectious for the people who work with her.
She is just motivating to be around, for sure. You always want to do better, and she also teaches us so much in our daily life.
Despite successes, Rachel is worried about the future of Miami's waterways, especially Biscayne Bay.
We're sort of on a tipping point here in Biscayne Bay where it can't absorb any more pollution. That's seeing really negative effects. And so one of the major things that we're working on is working on reducing pollution from the land from getting into the waterways. And we're getting what's called algae blooms, and it's when the water turns green and it smells bad and it kills fish and it can be toxic to people. And it happens up north from us, and a lot of people have heard it happening in Stewart, and where there were national emergencies declared because of the algae blooms there. We're starting to have that here in the bay.
But there is one issue that concerns her the most, and that is the safety of the Turkey Point nuclear power plant.
What's very real in the not too distant future in Miami is we're looking at a multi-system failure potentially, and at exactly what year that happens, or exactly which happens first, I can't tell you, but we're looking at serious threats to our drinking water supply and the aquifer, to our sewage infrastructure, and to our energy infrastructure. And in particular, the energy infrastructure piece is particularly worrying. We get our power here from the nuclear plant at Turkey Point on the southern end of Biscayne Bay, and that plant is already riddled with problems. The cooling system and the cooling canals are polluting and contaminating and aren't working particularly well anymore. And even in best case scenario, that area is completely flooded 365 days a year from sea level rise by the year 2040. And that is best case scenario projections, low end of the curve from the Army Corps of Engineers. And so our community needs to wake up and realize that this is a real and serious danger that's potentially going to affect our ability to live in this community in the future.
While the challenges continue to mount for Miami and its precious waters, just know that there is a small team of scientists and lawyers who at this very moment are doing all they can to save us from the worst of ourselves. For Rise News in Miami, I'm Rich Robinson.